Okay, hi there and welcome to another in our series of essay plan videos. Here's an example of building analysis and evaluation to this question. Discuss the extent to which introducing a tax on disposable coffee cups is beneficial for all. Highly topical question, of course, the concept of whether there should be an intervention in the market for single-use plastic cups. Most disposable coffee cups are sent to landfill or incinerated every year. The key to this is to build good analysis, then leave a paragraph break, and then put in some strong evaluation. Do it 2 times and you're in good shape. So here's my first KAA point. Start off with a definition of an indirect tax. Indirect taxes are taxes on spending, and good examples include VAT and excise duties. If we introduce a new tax on single-use plastic cups, that would cause the supply curve for coffee retailers to shift to the left. Of course, that would increase their costs. My analysis diagram, I'll show that in a second, shows that prices rise with the tax. Nice little connective phrase here. As a result of the price rise, the quantity of coffee demanded should contract, and therefore the consumption of single-use plastic cups is reduced towards the socially optimum level. Just develop the analysis. This can help overcome market failure, perhaps due to negative externalities from consumption. Hopefully more people would choose to bring reusable cups along to the coffee shop. So there's some good analysis there. You can then supplement with a diagram. Here's a classic diagram showing the effect of a tax. Increase in cost, S1 shifts to S1 plus tax. And crucially here, part of the debate is whether the tax has a significant impact on demand. In this situation, demand is fairly price elastic. Therefore, there will be quite a fall in quantity. Most of the tax in this situation will be absorbed by the producer. An alternative approach is to use an externalities diagram. Hopefully you're familiar with this. We're looking here at the externalities from production. Social cost lies above private cost, and there's a social welfare loss there. So you're looking for some kind of intervention in the market which helps to correct the market failure. And one way of doing that will be to impose a tax which increases the marginal private cost, and that should take output closer to the social optimum level Q2. You could develop this diagram by showing the amount of tax revenue that is generated as well. So I've done my analysis point, then leave a couple of lines, build an evaluation point. Here's one of my favourite phrases. Whilst in theory an indirect tax might be effective, in practice demand for coffee is usually price inelastic. The coefficient is less than 1, partly because people have a strong, if you like, default bias. They have a strong habitual demand. And therefore, any reduction in the quantity consumed, the number of plastic cups and things or disposable cups, will be relatively low, making the latte charge less effective. Always a good word to use, effective. Indeed, the proposed tax of 25p cup, if you compare to the retail price of £2.50, it's only 10% of the retail price. So therefore we're probably unlikely to reach the socially optimal level of consumption just purely as a result of a single tax or a charge on each cup. Then leave a couple of lines again and build your second KAA point. Interestingly, what some students are doing is they're reminding themselves to make it a KA point by just putting a little bit of pencil in the margin. This is a KA point. This is an evaluation point. That might be a good idea in the exam, just to make it really clear that you're on the right track. Second KA point is that a charge on single-use disposable cups would bring in some tax revenue. That can be hypothecated, is the technical term, or ring-fenced, if you like, and that money therefore could be used to increase funding, perhaps to improve the UK's recycling and reprocessing infrastructure. Very, very small level of cups are recycled at the moment. This will help lift recycling rates from their low levels, less than 1%, and as well as perhaps creating extra jobs. Tax revenues could also be used, perhaps they could be funneled into funding new research into startups who are developing, for example, biodegradable food packaging, including cups. So there was hinting that the revenue from the tax could be used for socially beneficial purposes. Then build your evaluation point. Second point, leave a couple of lines. I would argue here that on the other hand, the makers of these disposable cups, the manufacturers, argue that a new tax places an unfair or inequitable extra cost on the coffee drinking public. Many of whom might be on relatively low incomes, and also the waste from paper cups is a tiny percentage of the total paper packaging waste in the UK. Are we using a sledgehammer here to crack a nut? A tax on disposable cups might actually be damaging to lots of smaller firms who perhaps are developing paper cups that are sourced sustainably and which do less harm to the environment. Small coffee shops might also find it hard and might suffer, and that could be classified as an unintended consequence of the intervention. Of course, some big coffee shops such as Starbucks and Costa have already brought in their own in-store recycling systems and targets. Perhaps that needs to go further. Some shops, of course, use a discount on hot drinks for customers who bring in cups rather than taking disposable ones. A little behavioural nudge. Either way, in this kind of question, build analysis, then build evaluation. And here's just a few ideas on evaluation points, 3 little ideas that you can apply to lots of questions. In theory, but in practice. So many people might compare the Latte levy with the relatively successful plastic bag charge. Would the levy in practice be as successful as the plastic bag charge used in supermarkets? Always good to think about alternative policies to a levy. So perhaps you can go to your behavioural economics notes and find a few nudges that might influence social behaviour. And crucially, if you get the chance, challenge the assumptions. I assumed that demand for coffee is fairly priced inelastic. That isn't necessarily the case. The PED for coffee will indeed vary by types of consumer in different parts of the country. Don't assume that the elasticity is a given as part of your analysis. Whenever you challenge the assumptions, that is good evaluation. A lot of people, survey evidence suggests, now support a ban on certain things. So this is the percentage of people in the UK in 2018, for example, opposing a ban on disposable coffee cups and foam egg boxes and what have you, cotton buds and wet wipes. So there's quite strong support for going further than a levy. And an alternative is a deposit return scheme. If you can find some way of introducing reverse vending machines, people who will be able to collect used cups and bottles, perhaps return them for a cash reward or perhaps a discount on future purchases, that might be an alternative policy. Either way, there's lots of economics that you can apply to the issue about the economics of a Latte levy. And thanks for joining in this video.